January 23, 1945. The dense, frozen woods near Holtzwihr, France, becomes a graveyard for the 30th Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division. Facing 10 enemy tanks, over 100 infantrymen, and unable to dig foxholes in the frozen earth, they are exposed and easily cut to pieces. Shattered and disorganized, the 30th Regiment are forced to withdraw, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The very next day, the 15th Regiment are ordered to retake the same ground. The fighting is fierce and relentless. By the time Company B reached their position north of Holtzwihr on the night of January 25th, they had suffered unimaginable losses. Out of 120 men, only 18 remained. First Lieutenant Audie Murphy, now the sole surviving officer, takes command of the company. He is just 19 years old. As dawn broke on January 26th, Lieutenant Murphy and the remnants of Company B now have plain view of the heavily fortified village of Holtzwihr. Positioned in the village are approximately 250 infantrymen from the 2nd Mountain Division and 6 panzer tanks. The German infantry, an elite division transferred from Norway, are highly trained for operations in snow-covered terrain. Their primary objective: to seize control of the road leading from Holtzwihr, which is strategically crucial for the German defense of the region. The odds are overwhelming. Using a field phone, Murphy calls the 1st Battalion headquarters for instruction. He is informed that reinforcements are not coming, his orders to hold the position. With their numbers decimated and their spirits low, the men of Company B prepare for what seems like an inevitable end. Yet, in the face of such daunting odds, a legend is born. What happens next will etch Audie Murphy's name into the annals of history forever. A tale of courage, heroism, and unyielding resolve. This is the incredible story of Audie Murphy, the most decorated combat soldier and the most terrifying soldier of the Second World War. Audie Leon Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, in Kingston, Texas, a small town nestled in the rural heartland. Growing up during the Great Depression, Murphy's early life was marked by hardship and poverty. The 6th of 12 children, Murphy's father abandoned the family when Audie was just a boy. His mother, Emmett, worked tirelessly to provide for her children, but the strain was immense. Tragically, she passed away when Audie was only 16, leaving him to fend for his siblings. With limited education and few prospects, Audie took on various jobs to support his family. He hunted small game to put food on the table and worked as a farmhand. Despite these challenges, Murphy's resilience and determination shone through. The outbreak of World War II in 1939 and the subsequent attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 galvanized the young Murphy. He felt a profound sense of duty to serve his country, driven not only by patriotism, but also by a desire to escape the grinding poverty of his youth. Murphy's journey to becoming a soldier was fraught with obstacles. At just 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighing barely 110 pounds, he was initially rejected by the Marines and the paratroopers. Determined, Murphy finally enlisted in the U.S. Army in June 1942 after lying about his age. Basic training was grueling, but Murphy's tenacity and marksmanship quickly set him apart. His instructors noted his keen eye and steady hand, traits that would later become his trademarks on the battlefield. Despite his small stature, Murphy earned the respect of his peers through sheer grit and determination. He proved that courage and skill were not measured by physical size, but by the heart and mind of the soldier. After completing his training, Murphy was assigned to the 15th Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. His first taste of combat came in the rugged terrain of North Africa. As part of Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of French North Africa aimed at reducing Axis control and paving the way for an invasion of southern Europe. The North Africa campaign was critical in disrupting German and Italian operations and securing vital Mediterranean supply routes. The young soldier faced the harsh realities of war head-on, participating in the Allied invasion of Sicily in July 1943. His bravery and quick thinking during these early battles earned him a reputation as a fearless fighter. As the Allies pushed into Italy, Murphy's valor on the battlefield did not go unnoticed. During the bitter fighting at Anzio and the grueling advance toward Rome, he distinguished himself time and again. His actions at the Battle of Anzio, where he held off a German counterattack, earned him the Bronze Star. By the time the Allies reached the French Riviera in August 1944, Murphy had been promoted to Staff Sergeant. His daring leadership during the Southern France campaign garnered him several awards, including the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, and a battlefield commission to second lieutenant. But it was in the winter of 1945, in the frozen forests of Holtzwihr, France, that Audie Murphy's legend would truly be forged. On January 25, 1945, the remnants of Company B, 15th Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, were positioned in the woods north of Holtzwihr, France. They had orders to hold the line against a likely German counterattack. The preceding days had seen heavy losses and a strategic retreat by the 30th Regiment, leaving the 15th Regiment with the critical task of retaking and holding the contested ground. By the time Company B had reached their assigned position, they had suffered greatly. Of the 120 enlisted men, 102 had been either killed or wounded, including all of the senior officers, leaving only 18 men. Murphy, now a first lieutenant, assumed command of Company B and prepared his men for the imminent attack. To the relief of Murphy and his men, the Germans did not attack at daybreak. This unexpected delay provided Murphy with a crucial opportunity to strengthen their defensive positions. Foxholes were impossible to dig in the frozen ground. Therefore, Murphy positioned his men in a line formation within the wooded area, using the natural cover to their advantage. Two M10 tank destroyers from the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion, a unit known for its mobility and ability to counter enemy tanks effectively, arrived to support the beleaguered company. These tank destroyers were crucial for the defense, providing significant firepower against German armor. Murphy strategically placed the two M10 tank destroyers to maximize their defensive potential. The first M10 was positioned slightly forward on the left flank. This placement allowed it to cover the main approach routes that the German tanks and infantry were likely to use, ensuring it could engage the enemy early and disrupt their advance. The second M10 was placed further back, approximately 10 yards behind the first, on the right flank. This position provided overlapping fields of fire with the forward M10 and created a crossfire zone that would be deadly for advancing German forces. The rear position also gave it a better angle to engage any enemy units attempting to flank the American positions. To coordinate the defense effectively, Murphy took a position in a ditch about 10 yards in front of the rear M10. From this vantage point, he could observe the battlefield, direct the fire of both M10s, and maintain communication with his artillery support. As dawn broke, Lieutenant Murphy and the remnants of Company B now had a plain view of the heavily fortified village of Holtzwihr. Positioned in the village are approximately 250 infantrymen from the 2nd Mountain Division and 6 panzer tanks. The German infantry, an elite division transferred from Norway, were highly trained for operations in snow-covered terrain. Their primary objective, to seize control of the road leading from Holtzwihr, which is strategically crucial for the German defense of the region. At 2 p.m. on January 26th, German forces, comprising both armored units and infantry, launched their assault from Holtzwihr. Of the initial engagement, Murphy recalled, "From my forward shallow emplacement, I saw the counterattack forming with 6 tanks and about 250-foot soldiers garbed in white suits, so it would have been impossible to spot them sooner or any farther away than a mile. I alerted the men and ran for the field phone and called the artillery officer at battalion headquarters and arranged for 2nd Battalion to fire. I no sooner gave the order to fire than all hell broke loose." The German attack was heralded by a heavy artillery barrage designed to soften the American defenses and pave the way for the advancing troops. The artillery fire was intense and relentless, shaking the ground and sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air, creating a chaotic and terrifying prelude to the ground assault. As the German tanks and infantry advanced, the forward M10 opened fire. Unfortunately, the 90mm shells from the M10 were ineffective against the heavily armored German tanks. Despite scoring direct hits, the shells bounced harmlessly off the enemy armor. The rear M10, positioned for support, also engaged the enemy. However, it was hit by an 88mm shell from a German tank, which pierced its thin armor. The impact killed the commander and gunner instantly, rendering the tank destroyer inoperative. The surviving crew members of the rear M10 had no choice but to abandon the burning vehicle and retreat into the woods. This left a critical gap in the American defensive line. The forward M10 tank destroyer, although initially having more luck than the rear M10, tried to maneuver into a better firing position. The crew lost control and it slid, ending up stuck in a drainage ditch. Now a sitting duck for the Panzers, the crew abandoned the M10 and fell back into the woods. Outnumbered and outgunned, the American forces were on the brink of being overrun. German tanks and infantry pressed forward relentlessly. Realizing the dire situation, Murphy ordered his men to fall back to a secondary defensive line, deeper in the woods, while he stayed behind to cover their retreat. And it's at this point that an American legend was born. Calling in artillery fire on top of the Germans with incredible precision, communicating target instructions with battalion headquarters, firing his own carbine at the enemy soldiers at the same time, Murphy was able to slow the German advance. The Germans had advanced to within 50 yards of Murphy when a lieutenant from battalion headquarters inquired about the enemy's position. Murphy replied, "If you just hold the phone a minute, I'll let you talk to one of the bastards." Having exhausted all of his carbine ammunition, Murphy turned to make his retreat towards the secondary defensive line when he caught sight of the rear M10 tank destroyer that had been knocked out of commission by the advancing German Panzer in the initial stages of the fight. Now almost completely on fire, Murphy climbed onto the burning vehicle and began firing its .50 caliber machine gun at the advancing enemy. With the tank on fire, Murphy knew the very real risk that soon the fire would reach the vehicle's fuel and ammunition, and it could blow up at any time. However, Murphy knew he had to hold off the enemy advance for as long as he could to allow his men to safely retreat and for reinforcements to arrive. First Lieutenant Walter Weisfenning later recalled, "I saw hundreds of Germans swarming from the woods. They all had automatic weapons. He was all alone out there." Weisfenning continued, "It was the bravest thing I've ever seen a man do in combat. With the Germans 100 yards away, he climbed onto the tank destroyer turret and began firing its .50 caliber machine gun at the advancing Krauts. He was completely exposed to the enemy fire, and there was a blaze under him that threatened to blow the destroyer to bits." For over an hour, Murphy single-handedly held off the German onslaught, all the time with enemy fire smashing into the base and tracks of the M10. On 2 occasions, the tank destroyer was hit by direct shell fire, knocking Murphy from his feet and smashing him against the turret. Both times, he regained his position and continued firing at the enemy. When later asked about the danger he faced standing on top of the burning tank, Murphy casually responded, "I remember getting the hell shook out of me, but that was nothing new. I also remember for the first time in 3 days, my feet were warm." His unyielding fire forced the enemy to halt their advance and regroup. Murphy alternated between firing on the enemy and directing artillery fire via radio, calling in precise strikes that devastated the German forces. As the enemy began retreating, Murphy's field phone went dead. His clothing was riddled by flying fragments of shells and bits of rocks. Now, bleeding from an old wound that had opened up during the fight, his trousers soaked in blood, an exhausted Murphy descended from the tank and slowly made his way back to the secondary defensive position with his men. On making it to the tree line, Murphy recalls hearing the M10 explode, blasting off the turret on which he was just standing. Private Charles Owen, one of the 18 men left in Company B, recalled watching Lieutenant Murphy in awe, saying, "He saved our lives. If he hadn't done what he did, the Germans would have annihilated us. We were already beat down pretty bad and about out of ammunition." On returning to his men at the secondary defensive position, Murphy quickly organized a counterattack. Sergeant Brawley later stated in a sworn testimony, "Lieutenant Murphy, refusing to be evacuated, led us in a strong attack against the enemy, dislodging the Germans from the whole area. Murphy continued advancing until the men of Company B had reoccupied their original positions. When reinforcements finally arrived, the Germans were in full retreat. Murphy's extraordinary bravery and tactical brilliance had turned the tide of the battle. For his actions at Holtzwihr, he was awarded the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. Audie Murphy returned from the war as one of the most decorated soldiers in American history. Yet, his journey was far from over. Hollywood soon came calling, eager to turn his incredible story into a motion picture. In 1945, Murphy was invited to Hollywood by actor James Cagney, who saw the potential in the young war hero. Audie Murphy quickly transitioned from a war hero to a movie star. His first major role came in the film Beyond Glory in 1948. Over the next 2 decades, Murphy starred in more than 40 films, often playing characters similar to his own wartime experiences. His most famous role was in To Hell and Back, a film adaptation of his own autobiography where he portrayed himself. To Hell and Back became a massive success, cementing Murphy's status as a Hollywood star. However, beneath the glitz and glamour, Murphy was battling inner demons. The horrors of war had left an indelible mark on Murphy. He suffered from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, a condition not well understood at the time. Plagued by nightmares and flashbacks, Murphy struggled to adjust to civilian life. In a time when discussing mental health was taboo, he courageously spoke out about his struggles, bringing attention to the plight of veterans with similar conditions. Murphy became a vocal advocate for veterans' rights. He used his fame to raise awareness and push for better mental health care for those who had served. He was instrumental in changing the perception of PTSD and helping to destigmatize mental health issues among veterans. Despite his struggles, Murphy found solace in his family. He married actress Wanda Hendricks in 1949, but the marriage was short-lived. In 1951, he married Pamela Archer, a former airline stewardess. The couple had 2 sons, Terry and James, and Murphy cherished his role as a father. He often found peace in the simple joys of family life. Murphy's post-war life was a blend of triumph and struggle. While he achieved great success in Hollywood and made significant contributions to veterans advocacy, he could never fully escape the shadows of his wartime experiences. He continued to act and make public appearances, but his personal battles persisted. On May 28, 1971, tragedy struck. Audie Murphy was on a private plane en route to a business meeting when the aircraft crashed into Brush Mountain near Catawba, Virginia, during heavy fog and rain. There were 6 people on board, including Murphy. Unfortunately, all were killed. The news of his untimely death at age 45 shocked the nation. Tributes poured in from across the country, honoring a hero's life. Murphy was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery, a fitting tribute to his service and sacrifice. Murphy's burial was attended by family, friends, military personnel, and fans. The ceremony was a solemn reminder of the bravery and dedication of one of America's greatest heroes. His grave, located in Section 46, is one of the most visited in Arlington, a testament to the enduring legacy of his heroism. Audie Murphy's legacy extends far beyond his military achievements and Hollywood fame. He remains an enduring symbol of courage, resilience, and the human spirit's capacity to overcome adversity. His story continues to inspire new generations, reminding us of the sacrifices made by those who serve and the importance of supporting our veterans. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.